Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Yes, you found us. They said we wouldn't come back, but we have like a rat. Welcome to episode 2 proper of World Cup Waffle. And I'm beside myself tonight, but I'll get on to that in a minute. Firstly, I have to give my usual dues and thank yous to More Music Radio here in Cambridgeshire, the Gaffer Map page, for allowing us to do this, for allowing us to come in to your front room whenever you're watching this. So thank you for that. And what's happened since we last convened? The highlights and lowlights of the World Cup so far. England have played twice. Yeah, twice. You wouldn't know it because they only played in the first game, but they have apparently played twice. And as we record now, there's a lot of sympathy in this studio for the Scotland. Oh, they're now 6 potentially out of 8, and all that's got to happen is Belgium lose, USA lose, Caraco win. I'm not even going to remotely go. But Scotland, bye. Boston, thanks you. The Emma Hayes debate rolls on. It rolls on. Now, we've decided on this channel we like her. We do like her. I didn't ever expect to say that about Emma Hayes. My guest is looking at me strange. He probably knows her. But we do like Emma Hayes. The chalkboard, anyone that can draw a phallic emblem on the chalkboard and then cry about Father's Day gets our vote. So Emma Hayes, 2 thumbs up from World Cup Waffle. We love you. Hydration breaks are still controversial. Gianni Botlafanta swears to God that FIFA are not making a penny profit of them. All right, mate, you're best friends with Donald Trump. Who's going to believe you? But the hydration breaks took a new low in the recent France game where it had absolutely hammered it down for 2 hours. They come back on the pitch, start up, and have a hydration break. Go figure. Turkey have gone. I can't believe Turkey have lasted longer in this World Cup than a Katie Price marriage, and they're still out, Jan. However, I've seen my game of the tournament so far. I'm going to ask my special guest his opinion on this because I thought it was about a Netherlands-Sweden, a team that can go from winning their first game 5-1 to losing their second game 5-1, but that could easily have been about 8-all. What a game, and a lot of Premiership talent on show in that game. Really, really enjoyed it. However, this show isn't about me. Boy, have we got a guest for you tonight. We're going to bring him in. What you might know about this gentleman, if you remotely ever looked at football, you'll know who he is. But he has a huge CV, 152 regular games at right back, including 46 goals. I'm sure he'll correct me if I've done my research wrong. He played for Hartlepool, Bolton, Blackpool. He's laughing now. He's managed Bolton, Derby, and he's most famous for taking Hull out of the Championship and into the Premiership and having a successful run. He's also managed Preston, local League West South End, Swindon, and one that really intrigued me, researching this gentleman, Hyderabad. I'm going to come on to that. South again, more recently Kidderminster Harriers, and what drew him into our local area where he had the misfortune to meet Cole the Goal. He's been working at Peterborough Sports. He is an absolute British football legend. He's Jimmy Bullard's favourite impression, the one, the only, Mr. Phil Brown. Phil, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all. Really looking forward to this little chat. You said 35 minutes. I've never done 35 minutes in my life. It normally goes on for about an hour and 35.
I was going to say, Cole the Goal did say you could talk.
I'll give it a go. Just ask the right questions to get the right answer.
I'll try. Obviously, looking you up, a huge career at right back in the Football League. I'll be honest, I didn't realise that. Talk to me about your career.
When I started off at Hartlepool United, I was trying to get a pro contract when I was about 16, 17, 18-year-old. I had 1 or 2 interests from Sunderland, which was a trial. I had another interest from another club, which was not down my I'm not going to say it, but not down my cup of tea. But then Hartlepool United, okay. One of the directors just bumped into me on a Sunday afternoon when I was playing Sunday League football, and he invited me down to training. And the rest history, basically. I signed a non-contract form so I could see me time as an apprentice electrician, which I was at the time. I wanted to see that out. I wanted to make sure that I came out with my indenture forms that I was a fully qualified electrician. So I did that until between I was 16 and 20. So I was a non-contract player for Hartlepool United for about a year and a half. But then I made my debut for the first team probably at around about 19. And by the time I became a fully fledged electrician, I I probably did about 10, 12 games. And then I signed pro contract at the same time. I got me indenture form. So I was moving in the right direction. I got me, I've fulfilled my mother and father's dreams. My dad wanted me to be a time served whatever, but I have a qualification behind me, like a time served electrician, which I became. My mother always wanted, strangely enough, my mother was the one that was a driving force where football was concerned. She wanted me to be a pro footballer. And I eventually did that when I was 20, and I moved on from Hartlepool, 5 good, long, solid, hard years at Hartlepool. And by the way, you wouldn't believe this, I'm still bumping into players, ex-players that I made my debut with, and I'm still bumping into them now, especially when I was at Kidderminster Harriers and now Peterborough Sports, places like Spenny, and you go to the Northeast, South Shields, and there's one or two clubs in the Northeast that are still boasting teams that have got players that I know quite well. They're not playing now, obviously. They're probably in their 60s, the same as what I am, but they're still interested in football, and that's the main part of it. As far as I'm concerned, the reason why I'm still involved in football is because I love the game. It doesn't matter what level you get to, you love the game, motivating people, trying to get them to understand how you think, all of that kind of stuff. But when I finished at Hartlepool, I moved to Halifax, which was further south, obviously, and then my big move was with. You're talking about right backs. I went to sign for Bolton Wanderers under Phil Neal. Phil Neal was the manager. He played 51 times in my position for England, and he was playing for Liverpool, and he's won all the titles. And surely he was the guy that I needed to sign for to improve my game as a right back. But he didn't improve me. He was more of a man manager. He wasn't a coach. Mick Brown was the coach that I had that work with. I think he spent his time at Manchester United, Mick Brown, in his early days with Ron Atkinson. And Mick was more of the coach, and he was the one that improved my game. And even at 27, 28, I was still learning the game, and it kept me going. I finished at Blackpool with Sam Allardyce when I was 38-year-old. So I bumped into some good people at the right time, and I think that's probably the reason why the longevity in the game is stayed with me.
Did you stay at right back for most of your career?
I did move around in the early days, and it was down to the fact I had a coach called George Smith who played for Birmingham, and George was a proper coach. It didn't matter what you were doing on the morning, he had your back in the afternoon, and I was used to that kind of work. 8-hour days, 15-hour days didn't matter to me. 2 hours on the training ground wasn't enough. So even 2 hours on the morning, he was coming back in the afternoon, and he was educating me about how to play in midfield, how to play up front, because you were fitting into his little regime of teaching the players that he wanted to bring back, teaching them how to play the game in that position. So even though you were learning about how to play right back, you were learning how to play right wing, right hand side, midfield, striker, centre half. You were learning all them positions at the time, and every so often, because Hartlepool was strapped for cash, you were thrown into them positions because they couldn't afford to go and buy somebody. Hello.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear about your playing career, because I didn't realise that you had such a storied playing career, and apologies for that, but I'm just being honest with you. What you're really, really known for in this day and age now is management. What drew you in to becoming coach, management, helping players, whatever you want to call it in this day and age?
I think the main thing that drew me into management was bumping into two people very late on in my career. The first one was Bruce Rioch. And I bumped into Bruce Rioch when I was playing at Bolton Wanderers, and I was 32, 33-year-old, and I had businesses outside the game. And he thought, for 1 minute, I was going to leave the game. By the time you got to 35, the PFA told you that you were retiring at 35. The pensions were given out by the PFA, etc., etc. But I was still fit. I was still. The older I was getting, the more I was getting to know the game. I was understanding the game, and my fitness levels just took care of themselves. So what Bruce did was he made me go on this certificate of applied management, which was a course that was run by the League Managers Association. Anyway, I went on that, and I really enjoyed it. I really got my teeth into it. I was already managing a bar, a restaurant, a nightclub. I had my own electrical business. So I knew how to manage people or how to manage businesses, but football's a different game. But anyway, I carried down that line with Bruce Rioch, and then Bruce left and went to Arsenal, and his career went really well. Where I was concerned, I then bumped into Sam Allardyce at the right time. So I came to the end of my career as a player at Bolton, and I went to Blackpool for a couple of years, and then again I bumped into Sam Allardyce, and again another guy that had ideas about the game that were different. Bruce had ideas about the game, and they were totally different to Sam, but just getting the two of them together in that small space of time, 2 or 3 years, I was exposed to two great, in my opinion, two great men, either coaches or managers, but they were great men as far as I was concerned. I learned a hell of a lot from both of them, and that's the reason why I went down the line of coaching.
I mean, your CV, again, I keep coming back to this. Your CV, but the one that stands out is, I'm going to come back to some of your more famous moments, but Hyderabad, how, where, what?
Well, when I finished at Southend, and I had 5 good years at Southend. I was going in spells, you know. I had 5, 6 good years at Bolton. Then I had a disaster at Derby. Then I had 5, 6 good years at Hull City. Then I had a disaster at Preston. Then I had 5, 6 good years at Southend, and it kept on going like that. And I was trying to break the cycle, if truth be known. I had a disaster at Swindon. I had a disaster at Swindon. It was just bumping into the wrong people at the wrong time. You know, that's all it was. You know, I honestly think a lot of people can manage. They can actually manage. But if you've got somebody above you, if you've got a guy that's trying to run the football club in a different way, then you've got a problem. You know. So it's just bumping into the right people at the right time, management for me and coaching. And I decided to go to India just to fulfill something that I had in my head, in my ambition, which was to manage abroad. I wanted to manage a group of players. When you walked into that change room, they spoke a different language to you. So straight away, you're going to have to invest in their language. You're going to have to invest in their culture. You're going to have to invest in them as people and learning their ways and what motivates them. And that was the buzz about going to India. It was Pune City to start off with, but then they sold the franchise to Hyderabad, and it then became Hyderabad. And strangely enough, yesterday I'm walking around local town centre here. I'm walking around town centre in a Hyderabad top, and I didn't realise I had it on. And I've got this Hyderabad. An Indian guy came up to me and he went, "Hyderabad FC," and I'm looking down. I couldn't believe I got recognised in Oxfordshire by an Indian guy who knew what the Hyderabad top was. Oh, unbelievable. The footballing world, as we're witnessing now, is so small.
As long as you got free delivery. Oh, brilliant. That's just brilliant. Right, obviously, the one everyone remembers you for. You have a great season with Hull in the Championship. You go on, beat Bristol City at Wembley. What was that like?
It was one of the greatest days of my life, you know. And I've been to many, many playoffs as a coach, as a player, as a manager, now as a spectator to a certain extent, doing BBC work, etc., etc. And you go and see the heartache and the hardship and the euphoria. You know, you go to these gigs and you really feel, well, I do. You feel for the two guys in the opposite boxes. You know, not the director's box, the technical areas. And you feel for them because you know what it's like to lose it, and you also know what it's like to win it. But somebody has to come out winning, and somebody has to come out losing. And when you've won the way we did it at Hull City, it just became one of the timing of it all was just immaculate. You know, it just became one of the greatest days of my career. But then a year later, to survive in the Premier League became an even greater day because you've locked horns with 19 other top class, world class managers. You've locked horns with 19 of them, and you finished outside the relegation zone, which was enough to get another 75 million in the coffers and start again. You know, so all of that was a challenge that I was going through, and thinking back to it. As soon as you mention it, thinking back to it, it takes me back to it. Instantly takes me back to the day I was standing on the touchline at Wembley.
Brilliant. I have to ask because obviously one of the most told stories is the Man City Jimmy Bullard story with yourself, from you giving the players a talking to that time. I'm actually not going to go into that because I have my own personal bad experience with that man from when he was at Peterborough United. So he made a complete bell end out of me on an awards night, but he had good reason. So, but tell me Jimmy Bullard's story that isn't maybe so well known as the halftime rollicking story.
I've got nothing but good things to say about Jimmy. Many, many times in a changing room, he will fall foul of the hierarchy. At Hull City, the hierarchy was Ian Ashby, who was the club captain, Nicky Barmby, Dean Windus. There's the Holy Grail, if you want to call it. There's the chosen, the Godfather, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And Jimmy fell foul of that because he was impish, he was foolish, he was an idiot, he was crazy, but he was a great footballer. He was a great footballer, and I think that's why they cut him a lot of slack. Nicky recognised that, and he cut him more slack than others. Ian Ashby, I think, has become a lifelong pal. Dean Windus Dean Windus was really coming to the end of his career, and he just thanked Jimmy for being at the club, a club that he had really a lot of heart for, a lot of pride in playing for, and he loved it when a better player came along to improve the situation. He loved the fact that he was playing with Jimmy Bullard, simple as it gets. But I always remember when Jimmy fell foul of a Nicky Barmby rant, and we had just been drubbed by Everton, by Davy Moyes' Everton, 6-0, I think it was. And it was a Sunday game. And on the Monday morning, we came to work. I got everybody in. And I normally used to do warm downs on the Humber Bridge. There was that much give in the Humber Bridge, that when you were, it's 30, 35, 40 pros running across the Humber Bridge, it just started to bounce the bridge a wee bit. And that just took the pressure off, any kind of rehabilitation or anything like that. Serious, honestly. But the Women's Institute were having a march that day, and Jimmy and Nicky Barmby, who the pair of them couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag, by the way. The pair of them were going toe to toe on the banks of the river, on the banks of the river, and the Women's Institute reported it. It was going out live on the radio. It was just phenomenal. But only them two, I'm telling you. Jimmy was fighting. Jimmy was shadow boxing, and I think Nicky was doing the same. Like, nobody threw a punch, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well, you've only got to look at the Jimmy Duncan Ferguson story, but I digress because we can't get on to the World Cup. Otherwise, I'd be sitting there asking you, you from recollections and stories all night. Your basic first overall impression of it so far, Phil?
Overall impression, without being controversial, I'd say down and out money-making venture, but it's got to be. It's a business. I understand that. But, you're in the hands of the Americans, the Canadians, the three different venues. And I'm not saying it's their fault by any stretch of the imagination, but you know that it's going to be quality. You know everything about it. You're not getting any bad luck stories with regards to fighting and stuff like that that's going on. People look like they're there to support their team. They're there to support their... It's just brilliant the way how you're talking about me with a Dutch top on or whatever colour these represent Peterborough Sports. Everybody wears their colours, and I love that part because
that was cold and goalie.
Yeah, absolutely, aye. But back in the day when I was supporting Sunderland, I couldn't wear red and white stripe if I was going to Newcastle or if I was going to Man United or wherever. You wouldn't be seen alive. You wouldn't honestly wouldn't be seen in a Sunderland top. But everybody wears their colours, and I think that's brilliant. I think everybody's passionate about their teams, about their countries, and it does spill onto the pitch because the passion that some of the players are shown, i.e., and I've got to say it, the Ghana back 4, back 10, back 11, whatever you want to call them, Ghana defended as if they were defending a war. But the only thing, the disappointing part was that England didn't turn up. They didn't turn up with their weapons, they just turned up and started passing the ball around in front of them. And I'm thinking, come on, we've just seen a brilliant performance against Croatia. And I was really disheartened after the second game against Ghana. But Ghana was a sort of a representation of how I'm thinking. I love to see good defending. And I also love to see brilliance, and there's a lot of brilliant players there. There's a lot of players that we witness, and we are blessed by witnessing them in the Premier League. And fingers crossed, again, another reason why I've got this colour on, Hull City going back to the Premier League. I'll be getting plenty of work, I would imagine, from the BBC, guaranteed, to go and do games, etc., etc. But it's just great to see, managed by a foreign group as well, So it just shows you what the world is all about.
Doesn't matter, does it?
No, it doesn't matter at all. The world is all about, integration and the whole thing is inclusion personified. The whole thing is, without going too deep, I'm in the game still because I've learned to grow with the game. You can't just be 4-4-2 anymore and two wingers getting crosses into the penalty box. That doesn't work anymore. It serves a purpose every so often. Get a 4-4-2 out there and you'll cause confusion because nobody does it anymore. But listening to Duncan Ferguson on the television last night, and he was saying, I told you that ball in behind, that hasn't gone away. And every so often, you have to show goals, and it's all about a ball into a striker or a ball in behind, and somebody's getting on the end of it. And one of the great goals is in the Swiss-Canada game when the ball's gone in behind and it's gone in the penalty box very quickly. Ball's in the back of the net.
Good game, that was a good game. Particularly Canada. I've been very impressed with Canada so far.
Yeah. But he made changes too late, I think.
From our producer, Phil.
No problem. Carry on.
No. We've got a Canada versus Japan little bet going on, see who gets further.
Nice one. I don't know what I'd want to be on after last night's game. With Canada sort of dillied and dallied a wee bit, you know. Now they're going to have to play their games outside of Vancouver, which was I think, is a little bit of a faux pas on Jesse's behalf.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. You talked about all the Premiership players that are excelling in the World Cup. Did you happen to see the Netherlands-Sweden game?
I didn't. That was the one game I missed. I've seen the highlights. Obviously, you get the goals and this, that, the other. But that was one of the games I missed, and I was like, I'm cursing myself. But every so often, you get football exhaustion, and you know you can watch 3 or 4 games a day if you wanted to, but sometimes you go, whoa, this is too much. This is too much. And by the way,
Yeah,
you're talking to a guy who's been involved in
and
the game
some of the
47.
times as well.
Aye, but 47 years in the game, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a little bit too much. You know what I mean?
It's a bit too much even for me. Yeah, there have been obviously. How do you stand on this? You talked about being a model, you know, a manager of renown, and
Yeah.
you're open to new ideas. But the hydration breaks have certainly been controversial. How do you stand on that?
I'm disappointed with them to a certain extent because it takes the initiative away from the referee to make decisions and say, right, we've had stops, we've had 3 or 4 stops. There's been 3 or 4 injuries in the first 20 minutes. I ain't having a hydration break. It's
Yeah,
not suiting them. But there's also sports science. Sports science, I've got to say, I'm holding my hands up to the guilt because when I was with Sam Allardyce back in 1999, we were at the helm of sports science. You know, like you'll not believe, we were degreed up to the highest hilt. You know, it was just unbelievable. Everybody had a degree in whatever they were doing, psychology, sports science, just giving massages and stuff like that. So we as coaches had to go out and get degrees. That was our behavioral pattern. Sam said, right, we're not getting beaten by these sports scientists. We've got to get degreed up as well. So we had a lot of quality in the changing room, but we also had a game-changing mentality that would improve the game. And we were really at the helm with regards to changing ideas about, you know, behavior, about fitness levels, about preparation, all of them kind of things. But this is taking it to an extreme because the game has always been about 2 halves. That will never change. I hope it'll never change in my lifetime anyway. It's not about 4 quarters. And then when the referee is told that he has to do 4 quarters because of adverts, then I'm getting a little bit disillusioned there. There's that money-making venture that I'm talking about. Now, don't get me wrong, it has to make money. I understand that part. But the most important part is, let's get the business done. When the rehydration process is going through, why in the second half are you allowing the teams back on the field to play and then making 3 substitutes before the whistle's even blown? Make the 3 substitutions at the sideline. You don't have to carry, you know, it's some of the stuff that just faux pas that are deliberately winding everybody up. And I'm thinking, come on, the impetus of the game. That's the most important part for a coach is to keep the flow of your players, keep it
yeah.
going, keep it so that if you've got an
And,
advantage, it remains an advantage.
and you've seen teams momentum change completely during the tournament. One more quick one, and then we'll go on to our Super Brew business. I'm gonna have to bring Cole the goal back in. I don't want to, but hey. Your thoughts on England? You've touched on it so far. Fairly obvious. One really good performance against the strongest team in the group, and then a little bit of a back to back to normal almost. What are your
I,
thoughts?
I've got to say, I thought the half-time interval team talk by the Scouse lad, who was Tuchel's assistant, I thought was nothing short of brilliant. I've always been of the opinion that if you're a manager, you've got a backroom staff, and I always say to my backroom staff, if you've got anything to say it, but back it up. You've got to be able to back it up. You've got to be able to understand that if you've got my support as a manager, if you're going to talk a load of rubbish, you're no longer going to be a part of my backroom staff. But if you've not got if you've not got the courage of your conviction, then don't say it. But if you have got the courage of conviction, I think that throws up moments of magic. And I thought he spoke well at half time to the extent where if we're going to go out this tournament, let's go out on our terms. Now, I think that's the best thing you can say to a group of players. If you've got buy-in from a group of players, and they're world-class players, by the way, if you've got buy-in from them as a manager, and you've got terminology going into that World Cup saying that this is the way we are going to play, if you then back down, they're going to be looking at you going, what's this all about? And I thought to a certain extent, England were just long
Yeah,
ball. They were They were back to front, and it wasn't centre halves hitting the front man, by the way. It was the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper hitting front man, the goalkeeper hitting diagonals, and they lost their way. And they lost their way. But for him to come out and see it, I thought, wow, I'm happy with this guy. But then I was disappointed with his half time against Ghana because he was very placid and very happy-go-lucky, and I'm thinking it needs it again. I'm a big believer. I think we've got a world-class squad, and I also think we've got enough players now playing abroad and not just in the Premier League. And I think with that in mind, I think that gives you a whole new reference point to England players. You know, I'm a Tuchel fan. I do apologise if that hurts England people, but I'm a Tuchel fan in terms of I really want to see him get angry. I really want to see him fall out. You know, and people then going, whoa, hold on a second, you're just German. All that rubbish. I want to see him fall out. I want to see it go the journey. Yeah. And you're going to get to stages in this World Cup where I think we're going to go to quarterfinals minimum, semi-finals depending on the draw, because I think there'll be three candidates that are already in the semi-final. You know, you're talking about your Argentinas, etc., etc. There's going to be three candidates, and there's going to be one loose cannon. What that loose cannon is, I don't know yet. I don't think Croatia's out of it yet. But what that loose cannon is, I'm hoping England's part of this three that I expect to get there, and that loose cannon be, I don't know, one of maybe the African nations, you know.
Canada, go on, Japan.
I'll give you that.
Thanks, boss. Right, we're going to just go a little bit personal admin now, because we've been doing these podcasts with Super Brew, the prediction league, and we've got our prediction league going on, and we're giving away stuff and what have you, and we've got a prize to give away this week. I want to do a quick, as we record this now, it is Thursday night, going into the weekend of basically last group games, and Everton Eddie has still maintained his leadership by 3 points from a lady who's won. She's basically climbed, about 15 places?
9 places overnight.
9 places overnight, but I think it's 15 places in the week. Amanda 180, you will be getting a little England basket full of complete and utter tosh that you won't know what the hell to do with. However, we thank you for entering. We are grateful, and you have rightfully won it, so that will be sent to you. Now, I'm going to go on my rant. This is my show rant, and I'm going to ask the governor, the leader of the pack, who's still sat there looking at me, what he thinks. I was watching Portugal last night, and I got really, really angry because they had, I think it was their second goal. Very well worked free kick. Really good goal. Portugal will be proud of it, and what have you. But when you looked at cameras pan back, there was absolutely no celebration in the crowd because they were all stood there like this with their cameras. What happened to the old days of your team scored a cracking goal and everyone went loopy? You made new friends. You were hugging complete strangers. You were full of emotion and joy. And that is something for me that last night in that game, only in that game, it's some of the more traditional supporter bases are not doing it. It just really, really upset me. The cat nearly went through the television. That's how much it upset me. Phil, your thoughts? And I'll calm down and have a Valium.
No, I'm a big believer in your rant. I go back to the days in the Fulwell end when I was a young pup supporting Sunderland like a lunatic. And back in them days, all you had was crash barriers. We had a cage at the back end of the Fulwell end, and it was 2,000-3,000 people used to pack into that cage. And when we scored, we went ballistic. And it was a tribal thing. You know, everything about it. You were absolutely pumped because you wanted the team to score, and when they did score, you just went on one. You know, it was crazy. This mobile phone thing, not for me. They should be taken off you as you go through the turnstile.
Yeah, I'm fully with that. Just you talking about the old Roker Park there, and I visited it as an away fan supporting People United a couple of times, and I have to say it was a magnificent, scary experience.
That Roker end, I tell you what, the away end, wow. You had to be a brave person to go in there just for the height alone.
Just in the corner.
It's like the old Hillsborough, isn't it?
Yeah, in the corner, a little no man's land, and then lots and lots of big Mackhams who wanted to get in with you.
Not wrong with that. I'm not a Mackham, by the way.
Right,
I'm not a
Mackham.
I don't
know, hopefully with the signal. Are you not?
No.
What you classed us from South Shields, Bill?
Sun dancer.
Brilliant. Okay. So even though you played for Hartlepool first, You're not an MH either.
I'm not a monkey hanger, no. I'm a sand dancer. We've got 3 beaches in South Shield.
You're just bragging now, Mr. You probably own one of them.
That'll be nice one day.
Yeah. I'm going to play one-on-one with you, Phil.
Okay.
And it literally will take a couple of minutes. I'm going to read out 2 phrases, just 2 quick phrases, and I want you know if you want to explain your choices at the end. But one-on-one is an immediate decision. I mean,
Right.
it's quite straightforward, and I just want you. I'll call them out, and then if you want to explain any of them at the end, you're more than welcome. Okay, here we go. This is Phil Brown's one-on-one. Brazil or Argentina?
Argentina.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi all day long.
England or Scotland?
England.
Good lad.
BBC. Hopefully they'll be paying me next year.
I was going to ask you about that because with all the panelists on this year, how you haven't got a job is criminal. Lee Dixon or Olivia Giroud?
I'll go with Ollie Giroud, even though Lee Dixon's in the right back category.
Okay, brilliant. Cambridge United or Peterborough United? Be very careful here.
Peterborough United.
Good lad, thank you. Peterborough Sports or Stamford Town?
Peterborough Sports.
Good lad, finally. Steve Barrell or Sam Matterface?
Sam Matterface.
Well done. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown, for taking part in that. What I'd like to do before we close the show, firstly, obviously, thank you for you giving your time up for this. Obviously, Nigel Cole goal is, it's been suitably spanked for getting you on board. That comes to the end of the show, everyone. Thank you for watching, wherever you've watched this YouTube presentation. Next week, I'll be joined in the studio by MMR presenter Mark Pavey. But finally, this show has belonged to one man. We are so grateful for your time. We're going to leave you with thanks to Mr. Phil Brown.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in episode 3.